It's interesting as I've thought about this and as I've learned from a lot of people who have worked on this for many years and who are professionals at it, I really think it's best to think about this not in terms of Republicans or Democrats or independents, but what's the best way for people to become supportive of marriage equality. And in my experience, at least, the best way is to have a conversation with them. The best way and the most important way is for them to know someone in their lives, whether it's a friend or a relative who happens to be gay, and to have that person make the case and explain why they think that civil marriage, available under the law, ought to be a right and ought to be something that's available to them. And I have found that to be the best and most effective way. Obviously, it's important, I think, to make the case from all ideological perspectives. And as we'll talk about in this interview, I've tried to explain why, as a conservative, as someone who believes in freedom, as someone who believes in family values, or as someone who believes in the golden rule, civil marriage makes sense. I've had a lot of conversations with friends who I have a lot of respect for who don't agree with me on the issue. And what I hear from them are a couple of things. First, sometimes folks talk about the importance of protecting religious freedom and the sacrament of marriage. And I think it's very important from my perspective and those of us who believe both in the right to marriage but also in religious freedom to be clear that we're talking about civil marriage. We're talking about the government, the state, simply providing people with a license for civil marriage. It's up to each religious tradition to decide how to define it. The home I was raised in, my parents are members of a Jewish congregation, and our synagogue was a conservative synagogue. And conservative Judaism recognizes marriage equality, as does Reform Judaism. Other branches of Judaism might not. And everyone ought to have that right. There's room enough in society for all of us to have different views on this. But one thing is clear, the law should treat everyone the same. Secondly, you sometimes hear people talk about tradition, and they say that they were raised with marriage as between a man and a woman. The president said that in explaining, for example, his evolution. And to those people, what I try to do is ask them what they think marriage is really about. And to me, what it's about is two individuals who love each other, who want to spend their lives committing to each other so that they take care of each other when they're sick or when they're old, and so that the people in their world, in their community, share that commitment and help them out through tough times. And I think that goal is something that ought to be available to people whether they're straight or gay. And for society, if you believe, as I do, in family values, if you believe in shared commitment and responsibility, if you believe that our society is better off when that happens, more stable, then it seems to me that allowing civil marriage to both gay and straight couples makes a whole lot of sense. And that's how you answer that particular concern.